I'm going to get started straight away by posing a question to the people watching this. How do you define a high-performing product team? What does success look like for you as an organization? What does success look like for you as a team or even as an individual? If you're observing two teams, ones that you're possibly working closely with within your organization, what makes one more successful than the other? Which one is achieving more of their goals, their objectives, their OKRs that they're setting? Which one is innovating more than the other? The reason I ask this question, it's really important to identify this because what we want to be able to do is understand the traits of those teams, the individuals within those teams, their capabilities, so that we can replicate those across the organization for overall deeper and broader success. So throughout this talk, I really wanted you to deeply consider these words and consider what high performance really means to you. Throughout the talk, I mention quite often the meaning of certain words and why we have them and why it's so important to get right every single time what we mean by certain words. So while you're thinking about this, I want to take a look at what it means to be a product team. Now, most organizations, regardless of where they're at on their agile software delivery journey, most organizations are moving away from waterfall into various different types of teams. But there's two big areas that we look at here. There's one called the project model and one called the product model. So on the left-hand side, the project model. Teams that are in project model or organizations that are in this model have teams that are quite often output driven, thinking about velocity, story points, how quickly we launch something, how many things we put out into the world for customers to use. They're often role siloed, meaning that often you will see, even though we might have cross-functional teams, maybe we even call these feature teams, we have cross-functional teams, those roles are still siloed within the team themselves. You see a lot of handing it over the wall. The designer gets it from the researcher, passes it on to the engineer who spends 2 weeks building to get feedback from the designer, etc. These teams are often data restricted. So while they might have data, it's not particularly accessible. It's not easily to analyze. It's not easy to get insights about how the product's being used. And they're often reactive, and that can be reactive to market, reactive to competitors, reactive to what the organization and business leaders are asking for, which means that they're often closely managed. So instead of being empowered, there's managers in the team that might set the scope over the next weeks, sprints, weeks, months, quarters. That usually means that they're quite business centered. So we do what the business wants us to achieve and we build it in the best way possible. That ultimately means that these teams are maintainers of products and are rather practical. So they can be very, very highly capable. They can be incredibly efficient, but they're just maintaining the product. They're not in a world of innovating. Now, these teams on the left-hand side under the project model can still be incredibly successful, even if we're only measuring output and even if we're only fast followers to competitors. We can do it in such a way that we get to market quickly, we get things into the hands of customers, and we can still be successful. However, it'll be a real struggle to be innovative. It'll be a really struggle to be successful so much for customers that we're really able to drive business impact. And this is where the product model comes in. Teams on the right-hand side under the product model, working in organizations that have adopted the product model, might be more outcome focused. So they're understanding what it is that drives customer value and they know how to achieve it and measure it. They're highly collaborative, so we still have cross-functional teams, but these teams and these people, these individuals work together very closely. And they're much more data informed. So not data driven, so not the blinkers on and we only follow data, but using data, both quantitative and qualitative, to make decisions, to drive insights that make decisions for the team. These teams are often more proactive, therefore can be more innovative because they're not just reactive to the market or their competitors, which means they have to be empowered. So instead of being closely managed, where a manager of the company might come along and say, we want these things, teams under the product model are often empowered within strategic alignment and objectives to achieve things for the customers and the business themselves, make their own decisions. This means that they have to be customer-centered. They're customer-centered, so they're driven by what drives customer value, their understanding of customer value and how that links to business impact. These people, these teams are often problem solvers, often complex problem solvers, particularly in the B2B space. They're always looking for new things to solve, and that again drives innovation. As problem solvers, these team members are often very experimental. They might have hypothesis-driven discovery practices. And that means that they're able to identify and solve problems to be more customer-centered and drive that value. It's really important when we talk about high-performing product teams to understand where your teams and where your organization is on this map. Are we further to the left? Are we further to the right? Are we more in project mode where we're really thinking about being output driven, or in product mode where we're really thinking about being outcome focused? While you have a think about that, I'll very quickly introduce myself. My name is Chris Compston. I'm a product enablement and operations consultant. I work with clients to set up product operations and to enable product thinking teams, drive them towards understanding how to be outcome focused, how to drive for customer value, how to find that business impact, what the structures are and the practices and process we need in place to enable those teams to do the best work. And that's what my talk is about today. I've previously worked at Bumble in the online dating world and at Farfetch in the luxury fashion world, doing exactly those things. Prior to that, I was a lead product consultant working at ThoughtWorks, one of the pioneers of agile software development and engineering, and a variety of clients across Europe, large and small, from Sainsbury's, 150 years old, to a startup that was launched 6 months before I joined. So a variety of those types of experiences. I work with clients, particularly in the consulting space, which is for me very hands-on and driving and delivering projects for them, and also the advisory space where I'm doing leadership coaching. My website is also there across all these slides, actually. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, there's the QR code. So coming back to that question, how do you define a high-performing product team? What does that look like for you? For me, it's a team that can say this sentence: we consistently get things to customers that they value enough to pay for. We consistently get things to customers that they value enough to pay for. And this sentence, although it might be slightly different for you, is an all-encompassing sentence that can be changeable. You can adapt the green words, the green letters, to be something different for you, but it still has to be made up of 3 key areas. You still have to build products and services. That's what we're all here to do. So we have to consistently get those things, whether they're B2B products or even D2C services. We want to get those to our customers and understand enough of what they value, so we have a good and strong understanding of customer value that they value enough to do something about. And there has to be some level of business impact. So when we're putting products and services out into the world, we need to know that they're achieving customer value in some way, and we understand what that means and we're able to measure it, but it has to drive something. Now, often for business impact, it can be about adoption or acquiring new customers or reducing churn or reducing costs. There has to be some level of business impact. Eventually, you end up always in a place where you're trying to drive revenue. So for this example, the business impact is something customers will pay for. So you always have to have a sentence where a team can say, we consistently get things to customers that they value enough to pay for in the product model world. This does not look the same in a project model world where we're driving output, and we might say something slightly different where we're thinking about speed and we're thinking about how many story points and our estimation and how many cycles it takes to get things to customers. But for me, in the product model world, we have to have something about products and service, something about customer value and how that drives business impact. Now, thankfully, there's some leading indicators of high-performing teams, and the first of those are what called the intrinsic motivators: being empowered, being capable, and being aligned. These are slightly modified because, again, the power of words, and I use these words slightly different, but they're slightly modified from a book called Drive, What Drives Highly Motivated Teams by Daniel H. Pink. He actually uses different words: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. I use empowered because I want our teams not to be fully autonomous. I actually think that's got different connotations now and can be, in some organizations, a slightly dangerous word. We don't want them to be fully autonomous where they decide what to work on and how they do it. We want them to be empowered so they understand the needs of the organization and they're empowered to make their own decisions. I want my team members and the people on those teams to be highly capable, not to be masters, but to be good enough at driving forward what they need to, and also have the space and time and the support of the organization to do that. And finally, I want the teams to be aligned around those strategic purposes, understanding product vision and their part of that, not just the purpose, not just why they exist. Intrinsic motivators are the ones that get us up every day to go and do the work that we're doing. And those are empowered, capable, and being aligned. Secondly, for the second leading indicator is strong team health. We've all been part of those organizations where we receive a health questionnaire every month, every quarter, and it's really great to measure and map that. But strong team health comes from being inclusive. We must have inclusivity as a value, because that means that we include everyone in this team, and we want a level of diversity, and we drive the diversity through being inclusive. You have to have diverse teams, not only because you're delivering products and services to a diverse set of customers, users, or clients or businesses that are buying your products, but we want to include everyone because they bring a variety of cultural experiences, mindsets, backgrounds. And bringing that together means that if you can identify those things early on, that those teams should be highly successful in the future. If you have intrinsic motivators and you have strong team health with both inclusive and diverse values, the hope is that those teams will be successful, and these are the indicators that will tell you that. And finally, that our teams have continuous learning and improvement practices. Now, we talk a lot about continuous improvement in agile software delivery, not just talking about doing retros and learning what went not so well and what went well and how we can improve, but the continuous need to always learn, hiring people with growth mindsets who are not settled and comfortable without knowing more and trying to solve problems, and always trying to improve on the way that they work together with individuals and in their teams and within the organization itself. I believe that these three leading indicators of high-performing teams will help you as leaders. And I say leaders because you are here after hours learning, you are consuming this video content and hoping to drive things forward. So you are leaders. If you take these leading indicators and look at your teams, you should be able to identify that those teams will be successful in the future and they will be high-performing. Now, for our teams to be high performing, what we want them to be is both effective at what they're doing. So when they launch things and get them into the hands of the customers want it and are willing to pay for it, going back to the statement earlier, but also efficient in actually getting there. Now, the power of words, as I said before, are really, really important. We need to understand the difference between effective and efficient, but we need to have some commonality between what these things mean. So when having a conversation about, is our team effective? Is our team efficient? We're all on the same page with what that means. So for me, what does it mean to be more effective? In the product model world where we're driving towards outcomes, the statement of being effective is that we achieve more outcomes from the things we launch. We put things into the hands of customers and we achieve outcomes. We know what the value is. We know what the business impact is that we're trying to drive from that. And we're able to achieve more from the things we put out into the world. That means that you can say you're an effective team because you're consistently doing that. Secondly, that we learn from all the outcomes of the things we launch. So not just the things that are successful, but the things that aren't quite as successful as we'd hoped, the thing that didn't land at all and really failed in the eyes of customers and the business. We're able to take those learnings, understand, we're able to measure and monitor the things that happened and learn from everything that we launched. But just as crucially, and the third one, is that we're able to actually apply those learnings, and we have the opportunity to iterate on those learnings. Our product leadership give us that support, that time, that space to iterate on those learnings and apply them to achieve even greater outcomes in the future. I believe if you want to be an effective team, you need to be achieving all of these. We achieve more outcomes from the things we launch. We learn from everything that we launch, and also that we apply those learnings to actually achieve greater outcomes in the future. Only then you can say that you're an effective team. So what does it mean to be more efficient? What does that word mean to me? So for me, it means we have everything we need to make good decisions quickly. We have all the data on hand. We're able to understand the data, both quant and qual, drive insights, make good decisions based off the back of it. We understand our strategic priorities, where we fit in the business and what our leadership is looking for us. We understand the business impact we're going to drive. And we have everything ready so we can make decisions on the fly very quickly. And secondly, that we embrace and adapt very quickly to ever-changing needs. When in product development, based on the things we learn, we have to pivot quite often, and we have to embrace that. We have to be able to adapt quickly depending on what the market shift is looking like, or what competitors are doing, or the strategic priorities of the business might change. We need to be able to embrace ongoing change, because change is a constant, particularly in agile software development. And finally, we consistently achieve our goals with a minimal effort. Now, this is sometimes a little scary one, particularly for organizational leadership. What it doesn't mean is that our teams are just going to sit there and try and achieve things and they're not going to put too much effort in. But what it is saying is that we're able to achieve all the goals that we set ourselves, especially if they're stretch goals, with the minimal effort applied, which gives us more time, more space to deeply think about how we can be effective. Now, the great thing about being effective and being efficient is that they play together really nicely. If we're really efficient and we're able to make those decisions because we have everything we need, we're able to find some speed gains and get to market a little quicker, it means that we'll have more time and more space to think about how to be more effective, how to drive those outcomes, how to measure them, how to apply the learnings. And equally, when we're more effective, we actually can double down on those efficiency gains. If we get more things to market quickly, efficiency gains will be realized even more. So by focusing on being more effective, those efficiency gains will be realized even more. Now, a classic agile theme is the concept of building the right thing, which is all about being effective, and building the thing right, which is often about being efficient. Now, on the right-hand side, when we're talking about build the thing right, we could be talking about continuous integration, continuous deployment, even test-driven development in some cases, but also having good design operations, component libraries. We can make things very quickly on the fly. We can do rapid prototyping. We know how to do A/B testing because we have structures and processes and tools behind that. On the left-hand side, building the right thing is where we have really strong design and product management and research practices. If you do both these things together and apply continuous improvement and learning mindsets, you can say that you are becoming more effective and more efficient. And what we need to be able to do is focus on increasing the quality of the team's decision-making at every single step of the product development lifecycle, right through strategic alignment and product discovery, when we're building things and delivering them and doing our QA work, when we're launching and measuring them and doing A/B testing and other various types of experimentation, how we stage our releases. We need to be making sure that the decision-making every step along the way is of the highest quality. We're able to make decisions quickly, and those decisions are the right ones and the best ones. Only then can you say that we build the right thing and the thing right. Only then can you say that we're effective and efficient, and eventually coming up right to the top to say we are a high-performing product team. Now, to do that, I believe that there are 9 principles of product thinking. These are 9 principles I've pulled together, and they are aligned in such a way. There are 3 pillars for these principles. The first is being strategically aligned around the business, being value driven so you understand what customers are looking for, and finally that you're outcome focused, and your team needs to be strategically aligned, value driven, and outcome focused to be a high performing team. As an individual, you need to understand each of these pillars and your part that you play in it. You also have to apply the lens of the business. So you're strategically aligned around the business, you're value driven around the business. You have to understand from the lens of the customer. So you're strategically aligned around the customer. And finally, you have to have a good understanding of your approach and what that means across these pillars. Each of these principles, I believe the team themselves need to think about, but even as an individual, you need to deeply understand each of these and the part that you play if you want to become a high-performing team and a high-performing individual in those teams. If you want to be strategically aligned and focused on the business, you need good, strong product vision and an understanding of it in your team. You need to be customer-centered when you strategically aligned around the customer. And as we mentioned before, you need to be an empowered team with your approach. If you want to be value-driven with the lens of the business, you have to understand product market fit. You need to understand your customers, the market, the competitors, how much you might charge for a product, even if it's an internal product, even if you're working with internal teams, you need to understand the third-party providers that might take the rug from under you. If you want to be value-driven when you're thinking about the customer, you need to be data-informed. Like I said before, words are really important, not data-driven, not blindly following data, but data-informed, so you're using everything you have to make good decisions. And you also need experimental practices. Again, thinking about being a product team, if you want to be value-driven with your approach, you need to have experimental practices across the product development lifecycle. And finally, for your consideration is being outcome-focused, ensuring you have measurable outcomes and understanding of them and how to measure them, again, supplied by organizational and product leadership. You need to have really strong and continuous customer feedback loops, and you need to be given the time and space to have an iterative learning approach and the desire and need to do that, again, using continuous improvement mindsets. If you focus on all of these principles of product thinking, You can say that you're doing your best to increase the quality of decision making across the development lifecycle. You can say that you're going to be effective and efficient, building the right thing in the right way, and therefore a high performing team. However, I've never worked in a business where organizations come along and leadership come along and go, right, now we need to be more data informed. Teams go away and do it. You do need your leadership to be wanting to move towards the product model to make any of this successful. But when it comes down to these principles, really sustainable change is only achieved through you, through teams, through looking at your continuous learning practices, your growth mindset, and through self-driven continuous improvement. You're lucky because I'm going to share with you a tool that I've created specifically for this called the Lean Capability Canvas. There's a link to it there, and there's a QR code after if you want to scan. The purpose of the tool is to take each of these principles to really think about how we maximize that performance, maximize the impact of those product teams in the product model. I'm going to quickly introduce this to you. Again, there's the free download. I'm going to use an example to give this some flavor as well, so you can see how you can use it as an organization, as a team, or even as an individual. The canvas is made up of 3 areas. Firstly, the belief statement. You can write this as an individual task or action. It's always best to do it as part of a cross-functional team. And trust me, it's really hard because I've done it 9 times for each of those principles. When you start a sentence, we believe in, you really have to be accountable for really believing in it. That sentence is really hard. I'm going to give you the example of what one might look like to help you out. When we come then further down, you come to the capabilities that the team currently have, what they might require to move them forward and to improve themselves in a certain area, and what the desired future state might look like as well. You also then want to be able to commit to it, again, using strong language. We commit to improving, optimize, or maintaining our current situation, or required or desired situation. Using the example of being data informed, oh, I'm getting a message from Kevin. I hope everything's okay, Kevin. So using the example, we believe in continuously striving to understand our customer as opposed to relying solely on our gut instinct. What being data informed really means is that we are always striving to understand our customer, right? It doesn't say we want to be data informed. It says we're striving to understand our customer. That's what it really means, as opposed to relying solely on our gut instinct. Now, relying on your gut instinct isn't such a bad thing. We hire people with great experiences, capabilities, and desire. However, if you always relied on gut instinct and relied solely on it, you are never going to achieve things for customers because you're not continuously striving to understand them. And therefore, you can't understand them from a customer value or business impact perspective. Therefore, we are a data-informed team so that we build the right thing. So being data informed is all about building the right thing. You're taking the quant and the qual, understanding the customers, understanding their value, and how you drive business impact. Now, for this particular example and for this team, their current capabilities that they have simple data collection, they have basic data analysis, and they're doing occasional user research. For them, occasional, it might be once a month. For you, if you were to fill this out, it might be once a quarter, once half a year, once a year maybe. For this team, what they require to improve on their situation, to say they're a high-performing team, is that they want data visualization, informed testing, and more regular user research, whatever that might look like. Equally, when they're looking at a desired position that they want to get to, they're thinking more about statistical analysis, predictive analytics, and they want data integration that's way more varied than what they currently have. Now, from an actions perspective, they're committing here to improving on their current situation, maybe with training and development, maybe with some external support, optimizing their required situation in different ways, and maintaining a desired one in different ways also. Now, as a team, this is really great because you can take this, it's an incredibly tangible tool and framework you can take to your leadership and say, we want to be more high performing. We want to be more effective and efficient. We have identified that being data informed will help us to get there. And this is what we're saying. We believe in continuously striving to understand the customer. Our current capabilities aren't that great, and we're committing to improving. But we want some external expert support on that. We need external training and support to help us to get there. Will you help us to do that, or can you not? And sometimes the answer might be, well, not this time, not in the budget. But at least you can then say, well, as a team, we're aiming to improve here. We'll try some of the things, but at least you know we're doing our best. As an individual, if you take this and use it to understand those principles, you can actually use it your half year and end year reviews and say, look, I'm trying to improve the situation of our product team to say we're high performing. And these are things I want to do as an individual. I want you to help me to do that. I'm improving in these different ways. So it's a tool for individuals, teams, and an organizational level as well. So that's that. And as a quick review, I'll just say, I'll just do these few points. So define what it means to be a high performing product team. What does that mean for you and your organizations and teams you work with? Define what that means. Write that sentence. Again, for me, it's that we consistently get things to customers they value enough to pay for. For you, it might be something a little bit different. Secondly, that by focusing on increasing the quality of decision making with those principles, we can lead towards being a high performing product team. And that finally, self-driven continuous improvement will get us there. And I'm hoping that the Lean Capability Canvas will help you get there. Feel free to download it. It's absolutely free. There is no email collection either. And if you do use it and you have some stories, connect with me on LinkedIn. Let me know how that goes. My name is Chris Compston. Thank you very much.